Well, welcome to Real People, Real Voices. I'm your host, James Jackson.
And I'm your co-host, Pastor Wayne Moore.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you, my brother. And you look great today.
And you do as well.
Thank you so much. The Lord's been kind to both of us.
Amen.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the Lord has been kind to you as well. We want to appreciate you and thank you for joining us on Sundays at 6:30 and on Wednesdays at 11 o'clock p.m. Also, you can catch these shows on our YouTube channel at WHMB TV 40. You can catch what you missed and share it with your friends.
Right. I've been doing some of that. I kind of like looking at you on TV. You do a great job.
Well, you know, Dr. Moore, we've got some great guests on today.
Today's going to be a great, great day for our Real Voices, Real People. And Real People, Real Voices, Real People, Real Voices. But it's going to be a great day. We have some great guests, and especially the first guest we have today. I'm very proud of this young man as he works in our community. He's almost, in my estimation, what we call the face of the police department.
Yeah, Kendall Adams.
Yes, major young man doing great work in the community. He's very, very active in the community, and we're happy to have him with us today.
And he has a champion for mentoring.
Yes.
Mentoring is part of the reason why he is where he is today.
Right, right.
And he is giving back in that area, too.
Right.
Our city really needs
He's
that.
an unusual policeman.
Yeah.
Very unusual.
So I think you're going to enjoy today's show with Officer Kendall Adams. In fact, Sergeant Kendall Adams. So please let your friends, relatives, family, neighbors, and social media networks know that we're on the air on today. We'll be back in just a bit. Well, welcome back to Real People, Real Voices. I'm your host, James Jackson.
I'm the co-host, Pastor Wayne Moore.
We want to get right into it, and we want to welcome Sergeant Adams. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. I'm really just delighted to be here with two of the finest preachers that I know, community preachers in our community. So I'm happy to be here.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that.
We appreciate that.
One of the things I want to get into, you're a champion for mentoring.
Absolutely.
You've been with the, or served with the 100 Black Men. But you came up through the ranks, and as I understand it, out of being mentored, you wanted to become a police officer.
Yes, sir.
And you are now a police officer, a very good one at that. And you remain engaged in the community to help mentor young people coming up.
Yeah, I mean, that sets the stage for who I am and what I believe in. One of my mentors coming up was a guy by the name, his nickname was RoboCop. And he worked around 25th and MLK, and I grew up partially around 29th and Boulevard. And I remember being involved in the Battalion Military, which is a 100 Black Men program. And it was high school juniors and seniors, and he was a police officer, and he was really tall, you know, he was this big guy. And he just had such an influence on me. He said, hey, man, you know, you never thought about being a police officer, and he took me under his wing and told me to go to college. I did go to college, and when I got to college, I wasn't going to be a police officer. I actually majored in business, because I think like most African-American men, police, nah, I'm good, you know. But I remember some of the things that we did just hanging out in the neighborhood and how he was a positive influence. And, you know, here I am 20 years later in a role that I really am proud of and really get an opportunity to interact with the community.
And when there's an incident, the face that we usually see that represents IMPD is your face.
Yes, absolutely. Is
that difficult to do?
It is, because unfortunately, most of the interactions that I have with the media and the face that they see, it's about shootings, it's about robberies, it's about the what we call the blood and guts and glory. And unfortunately, I'm associated with that. I wish I was on the other end of that spectrum, where I was getting to represent police officers that are having a positive influence in their community, impacting young boys and young women's lives. I wish we had more of that as opposed to shootings. However, the way our media mainstream acts, we can't get them out for that. They only want to come out for the gut, but blood guts.
Yeah, if it bleeds, it reads.
That's right.
Or
That's
leads.
Right.
What did you say? If it what?
If it bleeds, it reads or leads.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's a good one. Yeah. You know, I'm very proud of you. I want to say that publicly.
Appreciate
we
you,
have,
Pastor Moore.
1.3 million viewers. I want the city of Indianapolis and surrounding townships and counties to know that you do a fantastic job. And when I see you, it makes me proud to know that we have brothers like you who are working in the police department.
Yes, sir.
And trying to make a difference in our communities. We've had a lot of interaction, and you've proven that you're concerned about the community, not just to exercise law enforcement, but you're really concerned about the community.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Weed and Seed program, because you were around when it was really, really strong. And of course, that was being driven by a federal grant. As I understand it, the grant ran out.
That's correct.
Has that been resurrected? Are there plans to resurrect something like that?
Well, I think the police department is always on the offensive for programs that can interlace police officers more with community. I think most police leaders get that point. But as you know, government dollars dry up, depending on the administration, depending on who's pulling the purse strings. So while I do believe that that money helps police departments interact with the community, we don't need a lot of money to do those grassroots efforts that we were doing in Weed and Seed. When you talk about just having conversations with people on the porch, understanding that black people are going to be loud sometimes, and not to take that as a threatening stance, those don't take money. That just takes an understanding. And I think when we sit down and we start to understand our community, I was just talking to a police commander yesterday, and one of the things I encouraged him to do was talk with your community, find out what their issues are. Too many times, police departments, not just IMP, but police departments in general, go into a community and say, this is what we're going to enforce. This is what we think is important. But we have to take a pause and talk to the community, because maybe that's not what's important to them. So they have a buy-in as well. That's what we did in Weed and Seed.
Yeah. And the weed portion, was that law enforcement, and then the seed were more so toward the community centers?
Correct. Right. Yep.
I think we need something like that.
Yeah, we do, and I think in most cases now, we have to look at it just the way it is. We have a tremendous issue with the disconnect, and we got to find a way to reconnect that with honesty,
That's right.
loyalty, and commitment towards one another on both sides of the fence. And I think that he's one of the individuals that I see doing that right now. And community is afraid, and law enforcement is afraid.
That's right.
This thing about engagement is something, because we have high homicide rates, and a lot of things are going on in these communities that the community could help law enforcement with.
Yeah.
You know, Pastor Moore, you know, often we talk. You know, one of my afar mentors is the police chief for Dallas, and we all know what they experienced. But one of the things he said that was profound, that really rang with me, is, you know, in today's society, we expect police to be teachers, be doctors, be social workers, be food providers. We expect police to do so much. But the real nexus of what we're dealing with is we have to have a strong educational system. We have to have strong public schools, charter schools. I don't care what they are. They have to be strong. We have to have strong families. And I don't mean two-parent families. If it's a one single home, that's great. It has to be strong, though. And then it has to be strong religious institutions.
Faith-based community.
That's right.
Yeah.
That faith-based. Those three components, along with law enforcement, if those four are strong, then we don't see the numbers that we're seeing today. We don't see 170 some odd homicides committed in our city.
Where are we at with homicides? This is February?
Sure. Right now we are at 12. 12 homicide, 12, I should say, criminal homicides. There have been 14
Total
homicides, but 2 of those have been
Since January 1.
That's correct. Been ruled justifiable. And as you guys know, we're dealing with the influx of juvenile violence. Just this past week, 2 15-year-olds shot and killed a man over drugs. And then we sent out a release not too long ago. A 17-year-old was arrested on West 38th Street, going to a car to get his gun. So we have these type of issues that are creeping up. And that to me is a true essence of a breakdown of a society.
Yeah.
When we have juveniles.
And the crux of that is the spiritual formation.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time.
Yeah. So we're going to come back and talk about the community policing aspect. 149 criminal homicides,
Right.
8 to 12 homicides every month for over 40 years. We got a lot to talk about. So we want you all to stay with us. Let your friends know we're on the air with Sergeant Kendall Adams talking about public safety. Very important subject.
Yes, it is. And I'm happy he's here today. And we want the community to know who this man is.
Yeah. So we'll be back after this. Well, welcome back to Real People, Real Voices. I'm James Jackson,
I'm
your host.
Pastor Wayne Moore. Happy to be with you again.
Before the break, we said that for over 40 years, and I've been tracking this for a long time, 8 to 12 murders in Indianapolis. These are rough numbers.
Right.
Every month.
Yeah.
And Sergeant Adams has given us, since January 1, 14. And if you divide that,
Criminal murders, I believe. Is that what it is?
well, just all together, I think.
Altogether
All
14,
together.
Okay.
12 criminal.
And we still have about 2 weeks to go. And so, you know, what I'm monitoring and measuring is to see that average come down. Every single one of those is something that we don't want to see. So what are you all doing to move the needle backwards
Yeah, good question.
on that?
So one of the things, I mean, obviously, you know, we have a new chief,
Right.
and one of his, he has 3 pillars, I would call them: building high trust relationships, reducing violence, protecting the rights of citizens. And so he has really began to continue what we have done for a number of the last few chiefs in building that community bridge. Matter of fact, he told me, I don't think he'd mind me sharing this, but on Saturday he got up and needed a haircut. And he said, no, you know, I can't just tell my commanders to go out and build relationships with the community. I have to do it myself. So he, on his own, with no entourage, no media, went down to Harold's Barbershop, one of the more famous barbershops in the city, on East 10th Street, and got his hair cut. I mean, that's the type of commitment we have to have. And he did it because he wanted to conversate with the community, find out what the issues were, find out programs that were working that we can link up with and refer people to. Because let's face it, we're not going to arrest our way out of this problem. Yeah. We've got a significant issue in our community. We continue to expand and build a beautiful city, but the infrastructure that makes up the city, the people that live in this community are struggling. We have failing schools, and this is no knock against IPS or any of the other schools. The reality is that the schools are failing.
Over 42% of IPS schools failed last year, or got a failing grade, although there's some pockets of improvement.
Right.
Absolutely.
Not enough significant improvement.
To turn the needle in the right direction.
Yeah.
You mentioned that there's going to be some things coming down the pike. The Baptist Ministers Alliance is gearing up for Nonviolent Month.
That's right.
And we're going to probably be talking about that in the near future with the police department. So we can do some things to create the idea of nonviolence for the month of April, possibly.
Beautiful.
And try to bring much awareness to the fact, especially to the community, and try to create dialogue to reduce the idea of homicide so there won't be any homicide.
That's right.
So that's where we are with that.
And Pastor Moore, you know, you bring up a great point. I mean, we think about Breast Cancer Awareness Month and all of these other very worthy causes.
Right.
But when we talk about violence, we often don't talk about that because it doesn't impact me. You know, I live up in Fishers, or I live in up on 96th Street, and I don't see it. Right. But the reality is violence affects all of us.
And violence is moving to Fisher.
That's right.
And
That's right.
It's moving to
These are the
96th
suburbs.
Street.
That's correct.
Well, let me ask you, because the most basic responsibility of local government is public safety.
Correct.
And you all are what we call the public safety servants.
That's right.
To protect and serve the people. So since the inception of the police department in the late 1890s, we have never had the right proportion of patrol officers for the number of people that live in the county.
Yeah.
And we often hear we're going to put 50 more police officers, 100 more police officers, but then you have your attrition where you have folks retiring, folks quitting or getting fired from time to time. How do we close the gap and move 2 officers per 1,000 residents, which it has been since the late 1890s. Today it's still 2 officers per 1,000 residents. And the FBI has suggested we need as many as 5 to 9 police officers per 1,000 residents. How can we get there? Is it possible?
Yeah, I think that's a very challenging question. You know, when you look at our current taxing structure, you'll see that a good chunk of the money is going towards public safety, to include prosecutors and
yeah, I think Councilman Leroy said about $700-some million.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said that, but he probably was incorrect. Move on.
So
he doesn't sound like he's a friend of yours.
No, I'm not saying that.
Maybe he's watching. Yeah. Get him on. Go ahead.
But the reality is, I mean, that is a fundamental challenge we will continue to have. I think with this current administration, we've seen a commitment to public safety. We know that our numbers will improve over the next 3 years. One of the things the chief talks about is knowing. Oftentimes we don't know what that number is because different administrations will finagle the money to meet whatever the pressing need is. But this administration has said that at the end of the year, or at the end of the 3 years, you will have this total number. But the reality is, Pastor Jackson, it wouldn't matter if we had 3,000 police officers. I'm not sure we would see a reduction because police officers don't reduce homicides just by the mere presence of them. Mm-hmm. What reduces those homicides is getting to the underlying issues of what's going on in that community.
Right.
Is it poverty? Is it job insecurity? You know, what are the issues that are driving homicides? Because homicides most of the time aren't committed in front of police.
Right.
If they were, they probably wouldn't happen.
And most of them, Pastor Jackson, and I think you can help me with this, most of them are just people not getting along.
That's correct. That's absolutely correct.
People are and when they don't get along, they resort to extreme violence
That's
now.
right.
And so if you go back and look at the reports, a lot of things that we're hearing now is a lot of it is some's domestic, some is violent crimes, etc. But a lot of people
That's correct.
are just not getting along.
Yeah, I think, and you're right, more police officers doesn't necessarily mean there'll be fewer homicides. But I do think that there are just certain things that need to be in place. You have your systemic issues, you have your wraparound services, but if we've never had it,
That's correct.
then it's kind of hard to say it won't work.
That's correct.
And if you do increase the number of police officers, then they have to be properly trained,
Right.
so that they can be effective.
That's
And then it goes back to what you just said. Not only properly trained, but they must look like the community.
That's right. It must reflect the
Must look
community.
like, I mean, it's hard to bring somebody in here from Mayberry.
Yeah. But, I mean, Pastor Moore, I mean, you got to be honest. This is not a popular profession to be in right now.
Especially now.
Yeah,
Right.
but particularly now.
Right.
With the violence that we've seen against police officers, against community. I mean, we have, for the first time in my 20-year career, well, not the first time, but one of the first times here recently, we have a dedicated recruiting unit that has dedicated funds, and three of the recruiters are African American.
Miss Ida Williams.
That's correct.
She was here with us.
That's
She's
correct.
our recruiter now.
That's correct.
And she going out on college campuses.
Oh, she
She's
just
moving.
came back from Kentucky State University. So they, the reality is they don't have to recruit for the majority. They're always going to be there. When we have an applicant pool, we have 3,000 to 4,000 applicants. 80% of them are going to be white males. Mm-hmm. They have to strategically target African-American communities, Latino communities, Burmese communities, and that's what they're doing. That's what these funds allow them to do.
And Pastor Jackson, people talk about, well, it needs to look like the community. I have no problem with that. I think cultural training,
Yeah, absolutely.
especially when you're getting 80% versus 20%, they have to do something as it relates to cultural training to make police and community have a better mash mixed together and make it happen.
In this class, you'll remember this, in this current recruiting class, and I don't know that it's public, but I'm gonna make it public, we have a Sikh community member in the class, in the recruit class. So we understand the importance of it, I think.
And what is their role?
The Sikh community, he's gonna be a police officer. He's in the recruit class.
Okay.
So we are strategically, I think our last recruiting class had around, I want to say 22% diversity. So we're seeing more and more black males, and we're seeing some black females, but the reality is the challenge is very hard. We are looking at our processes to make them more condensed so people don't have to our process is taking anywhere from 6 to almost 8 months to get through. So we're looking to condense that to make it more feasible for people that need jobs, so to speak.
Well, in the time we have left, what I would like to see is less of a chief change. You know, we're changing chiefs way too often. In business, it takes 3 to 5 years.
That's right.
To
I agree
really
with you,
get things.
Pastor.
I agree.
And over the last 10 years, we just had too many changes.
I agree.
So
I agree.
hopefully we can stay with this chief for a while, where he can get his sea legs, as it were, and get that needle moving back in the right direction.
Yeah, and I'm hearing that he's familiar with the community.
He is, and he's committed to, he's already said that he's committed to 3 years, at least 3 years. He's committed to the mayor that he'll be here 3 years. He is a guy that has come up through the ranks.
And you tell him he's coming on Real People, Real Voices.
Absolutely.
And this is no show to be kidding around on.
Yes, sir.
Because we get to the nuts and the bolts of the matter.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
We appreciate it.
Anytime.
And thank you for joining us on today. Don't go away. We'll be back with the rundown. Well, welcome back to Real People, Real Voices. I'm your host, James Jackson.
I'm your co-host, Pastor Wayne Moore.
And I'm Faith McKinney, your producer.
What a great segment there with Sergeant Adams.
Sergeant Adams really is, he's come up through the ranks. He is a tried and true police officer. You know, he's committed to serve and protect, and he's shown that today in your interview. He understands what it takes to protect a community, and you know, he's got some good mentors.
Yeah, and when I was preparing for this, he was mentored through the 100 Black Men.
Right, right.
And now he has gone back
He's giving back.
to do the same thing that was done for him.
Right, and I think that's phenomenal. And I think if we have people who are in places of authority, who have been mentored by other people, would take time to come back and share what they've learned and to help other people to develop, that would be phenomenal.
And over the years, whether it was the Peterson administration or the Ballard administration and now the Hogsett administration in Indianapolis, mentoring is still at the top of the list as being an initiative that can help prevent crime.
Right, and I think mentoring is something that we're never ever going to be able to get away from. Because matter of fact, when a person receives a job, the first thing they go into is a place of orientation.
Right.
That's a system of mentoring.
They should.
And
Yeah, they should.
Right.
You know, it doesn't always happen, but you know, the police department is such a vital part of our community.
vital organ.
Exactly.
Right.
They have to be mentored properly by the people who actually care.
Right.
So, you know, it really does matter who mentors our new police officers.
Yeah, and we could see with Sergeant Adams that he has gotten some great mentors around
Yes.
him, some great coaches, and he's a great mentor and coach himself.
And he loves his community.
Right.
Yeah, loves the community. And that's, I think that's a phenomenal thing, to have a man to work in the community and to love it.
Yeah. And we love you today. Thank you for joining us again right here on Real People, Real Voices. We hope that you will join us again. Please be sure to go to our YouTube channel and watch this episode and others that you might have missed. Thanks for being with us.